For 4 years, my girl Rachel has been getting slandered for this scene. And I want to be honest with you, free my girl. She did nothing wrong, she's completely innocent, and honestly, the allegations against her are false. Because this never happened, because obviously, Baam is gone, so it is a dead man's word against her word. So overall, free my girl, she's innocent. Jokes aside, Tower of God Season 2 has graced us with its presence, and my goodness, it has been a long time. Like, let's put this in perspective, okay? It has been 4 years since Season 1 of Tower of God came out. And here, I'll just even show proof. Season 1 of Tower of God came out on April 2nd, a day before my birthday, 2020, and ended in June of 2020. And this, like, was in the era when COVID was first starting and everybody was reacting to COVID. That is when Tower of God Season 1 came out. And it's hard to believe it has been 4 years since this series got adapted, and we've waited that long to see a continuation, a follow-up to this scene with Rachel pushing Baam off the tower and being extremely selfish, wanting her own objective and goal. It's legitimately some wild stuff that happened. It was quite the cliffhanger, and I think, though, it's very fitting because obviously just as how, like, anime-onlys had to wait for the continuation for Season 2, those that were reading Tower of God from its actual, like, webcomic, you know, it was kind of in a similar way. Not as long as a wait, but we still had to wait a little bit, because when this section happened within the series, there was a little bit of a time frame to when Part 2 was beginning. For instance, the content after this, because this was the end of Part 1 of Tower of God, or Season 1, so to speak, of Tower of God. But, yeah, it's crazy to think that it's been so long, and we're finally getting to see the aftermath, the continuation, and what has really happened. And so, let's just dive headfirst into it. So, overall, one thing I think I need to talk about, I guess, and I see a lot of people talking about it, is the art style shift. So, if you are someone that probably just recently sat down and watched Tower of God Season 1, either as to remind yourself of the content, or you just watched it because you just wanted to watch it, or whatever, or you actively know what Season 1 of Tower of God looks like, you're going to take a hard look at, you know, Season 2, Episode 1 that came out today, and you're going to be like, this looks a little bit different. You're going to be thinking to yourself, like, the artwork and animation does not look as, like, let's say, vibrant and just have this very distinct look as, like, Season 1, and it's very clear that the art style has shifted with Season 2. Now, obviously, it's yet to be seen if this is a good or bad thing. However, early on, at least from the early ways to discuss this, I could see why people would be upset artistically, like, why they'd be upset with the artistic design of it, kind of, you know, making it look more modern or standard for an anime like Season 2 is, in comparison to how Season 1's, like, flair was with its color palette, etc. But disregarding that complaint for now, overall, I do think that the reason why there probably was a simplification to the art style is probably because of certain fight scenes and things coming up throughout Season 2, and I can't really talk too deep about that because obviously spoilers, but there's definitely going to be a lot of fights. There's going to be a lot of action sequences in Season 2, and I feel like probably having a very exaggerated or over-the-top art style, not animation, but just art style, would be pretty difficult to do, especially when it comes to animating it. It's kind of very similar to the One Piece situation with Egghead. Like, when people were complaining about Egghead, you know, the reason why people were complaining is because we had these very sharp designs of the characters from, like, Wano, and then we went into Egghead, and the characters look very roundish, or they look softer toned overall. And obviously the way that was done was to probably make it easier to animate with certain action sequences. And so I feel like maybe something very similar to that degree happened with the transition from Season 1 to Season 2 of Tower of God. But even then, though, I do want to say, despite that obvious, you know, major discussion point, it feels so good to have this series back. And I want to point something out here. This character, by the way, I've been waiting literally like 4 years to see her animated again. She has literally been my profile picture. You can literally see it up here. You can actually see her as my profile picture up here, and it's honestly just like, I've had her since, Season 1 came out. Since Crunchyroll allowed me to have her as a profile picture, I've had her up there on the top right, and I'm glad to finally see Tower of God, kind of reanimate her to a certain degree within this first episode. But okay, let's dive head first into everything that we saw. So one thing I want to point out is this action sequence, which looks really freaking good. Like, here, let me find it. It's like right here at the beginning, yeah. So, basically, we get to hear Kevin's music. FYI, Kevin made the music of Season 1 of, Tower of God, but he also went on to make the music for Made in Abyss. Anyone that has listened to Kevin's music from Made in Abyss Season 1 and Season 2, they know he's godly at his craft. He is absolutely amazing, and I'm just gonna let you hear some of this music that he crafted here with this sequence. It's so good. Like, yeah, like, it's so good. Like, even the choreography here, like, look at this flip here, it's so freaking good. I mean, I'm gonna say that, like, at least for this sequence alone, they were cooking. Like, Kevin went in on the music, and the sequence with the choreography here looked really good. Disregarding the color palette, etc. that I just mentioned, I feel like, once again, this shows an example of why they probably changed the art style to a degree, is because of this right here. They wanted to have a little bit better flow with the characters, etc. But my goodness, though, this was a good sequence. I really like this overall, and Kevin's music really, like, one of my favorite sequences, honestly, is like this little scene here with the music, the way it goes, like, really eerie. Like, here, I'll let you listen to it. Like, listen closely, you'll hear it. It's so good, man. Like, it's such a good little sequence. I don't know, Kevin is just so good with having, like, a nice tone of, like, choir-ish type sound, like orchestra, with, like, just this very darker undertone. He's definitely gotten really good at that. And I don't know, he's a perfect match with stuff that has very unique styles or storytelling, like, let's say, Tower of God or Made in Abyss. And I feel like there is no one better to make music for this series. I absolutely love it anytime he is associated with a project, because I love his music. I always have it on repeat. But, let's get into actually what this episode did. So, one thing that this episode definitely did differently than the actual webcomic is the reveal that who this character is. Obviously, throughout this episode, if you don't see the little subtle hints, throughout the episode, you're wondering who this character is that is obviously fighting these new characters that were introduced in Season 2, Episode 1. But then we get a little bit of a reveal later on that it's obviously Baam. We have a little brief flashback sequence showing Rachel and all that, and it's like, oh, okay, this is obviously Baam. So, there's been a large time gap. There is, like, been a time skip since the end of Season 1. It's clear that, a lot has happened because, the events of Season 1, if I remember correctly, was just Floor 1. Yeah, like, the events, like, the beginning of the start of Tower of God, they were pretty much just doing, like, the first few floors and all that of Tower of God, and, then we had the season, end. And so a lot has happened since the conclusion, so to speak, of, like, Season 1. There's been a time skip because we're on Floor 20 here. We didn't get to see a lot of different floors, but clearly this floor is a little bit, dangerous, and it causes a lot of people to basically give up their dreams and, stop actually climbing the tower. And the very vibe of, Floor 20 is presented to us with, like, loan sharks being introduced, money lending, and all that type of stuff, like organ, harvesting. It's pretty bad, and a lot of people give up climbing the tower because they just cannot pass the test to be able to continue on up. And so because of that, you have people going into debt, they don't know what to do, and a lot of people are dying, and a lot of people are making money off of people that are just very unfortunate on this floor, and they really can't do much at all. But overall, the floor really just depicts itself that a lot of people have reached their dead end. Some have given up, some continue to go forward, some can't continue to go forward because they're just so in debt that they have to work or they're literally going to die. There's a lot of emphasis on that. But one thing I do want to point out is that the start of Season 2, it's making it very clear that this character right here is basically one of our mains, that he is going to be a major spotlight going forward in Season 2, and obviously it's very early on to really get a good gist on how we feel about him if you're an anime only, but for the most part, from what we could see, he is good-natured to a degree. He has some more serious tones to where he's not, let's say, a goody-goody two-shoes, but he is someone that tries to be good for the most part, and he doesn't seem to necessarily be as strong as others around him, so it's a mixture of luck and a little bit of survivability that is basically got him this far, with a little bit of guts as well. For instance, him just not giving up. But, going back over into Baam as a character, it's very clear a lot has happened to him since the end of Season 1. He isn't the nice boy that he once was, which was a big thing and a big discussion point that a lot of people had about his character when Season 1 was airing, is that he was a white knight or a really good guy that followed around Rachel. He was a simp, but it seems like thanks to the aftermath of Season 1 and Rachel pushing him off the tower, you know, he has basically gotten in deep with the wrong people. He is now a part of a crime syndicate. You know, he is making people willingly just fail their tests, not caring whatsoever about them, where he looks like he will do physical harm to them. But it seems like in essence a Baam to where like the reason why he started climbing the tower is there because of his reaction. But overall, I do think that it shows that he isn't as innocent as he once was, and it's kind of sad to see innocence lost. Like, he has lost his innocence, and he is not the kind-hearted person that he always was. He's not as naive, so to speak. But overall, the start of Season 2 of Tower of God is good. I would say overall, I wouldn't say this is the most spectacular episode I've seen of this season. I would be completely blunt there. But it isn't a bad episode by any means. It is pretty good. Now, speaking of which, there is something I do need to talk about, which is these ending visuals. I saw a lot of people discussing. So there was someone that confirmed on social media that this ending song is incomplete. That apparently, as we get more episodes, the ending song will change. So every episode, this ending song will change up. It'll show different scenes, etc. So it means that we haven't actually got to see what this, you know, ending song is going to showcase, because the the lyrics within the ending song is really good, but the actual visuals are very lacking. But obviously, if it's supposed to evolve and change as the story begins, you know, and continues onward, that makes a lot of sense. I think that it's a very artistic, you know, decision, and I think that is a good decision, actually, because it reminds me a lot of, like, reading the panels within the webcomic when, like, you're scrolling down the way they kind of have this. Speaking of music, we need to talk about the opening visuals. So I saw a lot of people complaining about the opening visuals. I personally don't think this is the best opening I've ever seen. I just don't think this is terrible as people are making it seem. People are saying that this is the worst opening song of all time. I don't think so. I do think that they tried to have a vision with an artistic design with the characters in the opening visuals. I mean, I think sometimes maybe it might have fell flat to some areas, but overall, I don't think it's necessarily a terrible opening. So seeing the complaints around that is a little bit confusing to me. It's kind of like the same complaints you see with, you know, Yasobi, the singer for the Oshinoko first opening. You know, people are always saying, like, they hate, you know, Yasobi because it's very popular and bandwagoning on it. But, yeah, anyways, I will leave it at that. I wanted to talk about Tower of God Season 2. If you are interested in more content from Tower of God, let me know in the comments below. I might make a follow-up video talking about, like, wave controllers, etc., because obviously there is a lot of power systems within Tower of God that some might have forgotten or might not be aware of. So I might make up a follow-up video, like, just discussing, you know, the power system of Tower of God. If you guys are interested in that, you know, do let me know in the comments below. But, be safe, everyone. I love you. Chibi out.